Hey everyone and welcome. Today we're diving into a really complex, really powerful story out of South Africa. It's a story about power, about control, and about how a country's entire future can be shaped and almost stolen by systems that are just designed for domination.
And that brings us right to the heart of it, the big question we're tackling today. How exactly do you steal a nation's future? Do you do it with laws that are built to crush the human mind and spirit? Or is it something more subtle? A system that operates in the shadows, through backroom deals and secret bank accounts, to just drain the entire treasury dry? So let's start with the first system. This was a blueprint, a chillingly deliberate plan for engineering an entire society, and it was all rooted in the ideology of apartheid. And its foundation, well, it wasn't just built with guns and police, it was built in the classroom.
Okay, let's get into this. This system was called Bantu education. And we have to be absolutely clear here, this had nothing to do with real education. It was designed from the ground up to be an instrument of control, a tool for creating a permanent underclass, basically hardwiring people for a life of service and nothing more.
And you don't even have to read between the lines. The architect of this whole thing, Dr. Hendrik Verwoerd, he said it out loud with terrifying clarity. This quote, it lays out the entire philosophy. The goal was to create a workforce that had zero ambition beyond serving, to basically show them a world they were explicitly told they could never be a part of.
Now what's so striking here is the parallel. When you look at ideologies like this, you see that they require a very specific kind of education, one that's all about indoctrination. Both in Nazi Germany and apartheid South Africa, the classroom became a weapon. The point wasn't to open minds, it was to shut them, to install a very specific state-approved worldview. You know, a system that oppressive was bound to create resistance. But the fight against apartheid wasn't just about protests and speeches. It became a violent, complicated, and often pretty misunderstood war that was fought deep in the shadows.
The main force behind that armed resistance was Umkhonto weSizwe, or MK. That translates to Spear of the Nation. It was the armed wing of the African National Congress, the ANC, and it was created to meet the violence of the state with violence of its own. And that spear struck hard. I mean, from its big debut in 1961 with coordinated bombings, all the way to these major attacks in the 80s, MK showed it could hit the state where it hurt. They went after symbols of power, crucial economic infrastructure, even military bases and a nuclear plant. These weren't random acts. They were meant to prove the regime was not untouchable.
But here's the thing. History is never a simple, heroic story. This quote from a trainee at one of the early camps, it just shows you how much confusion there was on the ground. Were they training guerrillas? Was the goal a full-blown revolution or something else? It suggests that even for the people inside the struggle, what they were doing and why wasn't always 100% clear. So after apartheid finally fell, you'd think the fight was over, but it wasn't. The battle for South Africa's soul just shifted. A totally new system of control started to emerge. This one was less about ideology and way more insidious. It wasn't a fight over race, it was a fight over riches. It was basically a license to loot the state.
So what does this new system actually look like? Well, it's called state capture. And let's be really clear here. This isn't just about a few politicians taking bribes. No, this is the systematic hijacking of the entire state, its companies, its treasury, everything, by a network of corrupt officials and business people, all for their own personal gain. And if you want to understand the sheer scale of this, just look at this one number. The state power company, Eskom, paid 660 million rand up front for coal. The problem? The politically connected family getting the money hadn't even finished buying the mine yet, so Eskom was literally bankrolling the purchase of a company that would then turn around and sell coal back to Eskom. It's just incredible. And there was a whole playbook for it. Step 1, you get your people onto the boards of the big state companies. Step 2, you create these massive government contracts, billions for new trains, whatever. Step 3, politically connected middlemen show up and demand huge kickbacks, but they call them advisory fees. And finally, step 4, you wash all that dirty money through a maze of shell companies in places like Dubai, so it's almost impossible to find. All right, so here we have these two systems. They're decades apart. One seems to be all about racial ideology, the other is just about pure greed. But when you actually put them side by side, some really fascinating and honestly disturbing patterns start to pop up. And here's the crucial point. The main goal changed, right? It went from white supremacy to just getting rich.
But that theme of control, it's still there. The tools changed, from laws like Bantu education to captured companies like Eskom. The method changed, from physical oppression to financial crime. But maybe the most telling part is the public justification. Apartheid was sold with this innocent-sounding phrase, separate development. State capture was often disguised with progressive language like radical economic transformation. In both cases, the words were meant to hide the real, ugly purpose.
So seeing this evolution of control from one system to the next, it really forces us to look at today and to look at the future. I mean, what does it mean when the machinery of oppression just changes its clothes?
And that is probably the biggest takeaway from this whole story. The fight for a nation's freedom, for its money, for its soul, it's not a one-time event that has a neat and tidy ending. It's a constant state of being watchful, because the ways people try to exert control are always adapting, always evolving into new and sometimes much harder to see forms.
Which leaves us with one last, and I think, pretty critical question. The first system was designed to control people's minds. The next one was designed to control the nation's wallet. So as we look ahead, what is the next big battle for South Africa's soul?